Tapu, namaste, assalamu alaikum. May Buddha bless you. Grand Rising. This is Qesankh Keparu with a special video for my Patreon supporters. In this video, I want to talk about how to handle a polygamous relationship. Now, this video is going to be specifically for, or more so for men, because I think I'll make more from a female perspective a little later. But right now, let's talk about what the men need to do to make sure that the relationship is successful. Now, I'm a little exhausted, and I'll tell you why. And this is in telling you this, you'll understand the impetus for making this video. Today was supposed to be pet day. We're supposed to go and adopt the pet. Well, I get up, and I find that Beth has already left, and she's left a note on the refrigerator, a long, lengthy note. Carly comes in and says, I think you should read Beth's note. Now, let me just take a step back real quick and talk about polygamous relationships. Now, polygamy is an ancient practice that goes all the way back to ancient Africa. And I'm not going to detail why or get to the morality of it, but it's still practiced today, especially among Islamic communities. And basically what it is you're in a relationship with two women. Now, this sometimes works and it doesn't work. A lot of Muslim societies, being truthfully honest, do oppress their women, and the women don't have a voice in how things are handled. But when you approach things from a more, let's say, comedic spiritual perspective, there are devices within that spiritual culture that ensures the relationship goes well. And it's not just about assuming your role and making sure you fulfill your role, but we practice things like Mineb and Alkan Ma'at. So basically, it means keeping your heart still to live truth. And also understanding that what makes you happy is not anything on the external, but it's more inside of you. And that attraction can be turned on. So you may not be feeling someone, some man or female, but you can actually, through the head Haru faculty within you, turn on the joy and attraction. And that's something that we don't practice in Western society, because it is all about how you look. And we base our happiness on how a person looks and how they treat us. It's very selfish. It's not really a ma'at relationship. So in the Kemetic spiritual tradition, we do practice those techniques because we know that it's not all about physical appearance. It's more about chemistry. Chem, meaning chemistry. The etymological root of the word chemistry comes from kemet. So we must understand that these are faculties within us that can be switched on and switched off. Unfortunately, in society, we haven't learned to turn the heteru faculty on. And this is especially important when one gets older, or if your mate has a baby and her shape is not what it used to be. This practice of spirituality ensures that you are still in love with that individual. And you understand that this union will help you spiritually grow, but it's not about how much joy you're taking from it. So with that said, as I said, I woke up this morning to a note on the refrigerator. Now, I've been in different types of polygamous relationships with different women, and it's always, there's some that you vibe more with than the others. Like, just an example, like Carly, we vibe really, really well sometimes. And Beth, we don't. And I understand her dynamics. For example, Beth is German, so they have a more cold and distant approach, but they still can show affection, and Carly has that more Latina, hot, spicy energy that really, it can ignite a relationship. So you have to keep that in mind. This is why we go to the oracles and do readings to see how well we'll match. Now, just because, let's say, for example, you and your mate are fire and ice, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get together. It just means that you're now forewarned. So you should take appropriate measures so that the relationship can be successful, because God's not going to, just because you have two different energies or vibrations, God's not going to say don't come together. Because in life, you can't always avoid things that are painful or things that you don't like. Sometimes you have to work with a boss that gets on your nerve, or do a job that you don't like. You can actually turn on that pleasure faculty and enjoy the job. All right. And this is what our ancestors practiced when we were on the slave ship. We know we were headed to a new world, and it would be a very difficult life of chattel slavery, hard labor. But we had the inner peace, and we were able to turn on that peace center, that nirvana. Okay, but I digress. So I want to pass on to you something that I've noticed that is a common theme in my incarnation objective is ma'at. So that means that I will have challenges with relationships, and ma'at relationships are polygamous relationships. So she outlines in her letter all the things that she's upset about. And I'm not going to talk about personal trials and tribulations, but essentially boils down to protection and my person being too strict with her. So when Carly told me about that, I didn't, think nothing of it. So I read it, and then I read it again, and my person was a little bit insulted by it, because she really went after me and kind of like attacked me. So I said, well, let's get her on the phone and we'll talk to her. And Carly was like, she doesn't want to talk today. She's, going to do her own thing, and she'll get back to us tomorrow. So what she had outlined in the letter was very reasonable things. But what I didn't realize was that the two of them got together and kind of authored the letter. So it wasn't coming purely from Beth. It was coming from both of them. Now, at the end of the day, I went to the Oracle, asked the Oracle how to deal with the Oracle said 10th hexagram conduct. So I was able to get Beth on the phone and just iron it out within 5 minutes. And I just said, basically, what you're saying is reasonable. So I'm open to us, or I'm open to be a little more lenient in things, and see it your way. And she was very happy. She was ecstatic. I think she had gotten the wrong impression that I would take a hard line and say no. So all is well. Not so much. You see, one thing I noticed is that I'm dealing with a lot of things. One thing I noticed is that it was very mentally exhausting to have to go through that. And I've gone through it a million times. And the point I want to put a pin in is to keep this in mind. If you're a guy and you're thinking about getting into a polygamous relationship, it can be very loving, nurturing, a wonderful experience. But you must also understand female nature. Females take comfort in one another. Like guys will get together and will never open up emotionally, or will never talk about things that bother us so much in the house, but more so maybe at work or things like that. So females have a different approach in how they interact, and they get into packs and they vent, and they're not necessarily looking for a solution, but they are just looking for to see if you understand and give emotional support. So most of the relationships I've been in, all of the women, 100%, get together, exchange notes, talk behind the scenes. Now, as a man, I'm not used to that because I know men, we don't do that typically. So lo and behold, if one lady knows something, rest assured the other one is going to know it. And they may pretend like they're both not on the same page, but they are. And they can be very sneaky in a way to get their way. And it can be very exhausting fighting these battles because it may seem like, well, if I can just solve this with her, it'll be okay, but not knowing that the other person, the other woman has the same problem as well, but they didn't communicate it to you. Or they may get together and be really upset with you and not necessarily verbalize it, and you're wondering why both of them are acting strange. So the key here is to remember that they're always talking amongst themselves. They're always trading notes. And just to put in a very lighthearted way, they will gang up on you, all right? In the drop of a dime, they'll gang up on you. So you have to be ready for that. It can be a constant thing. But here's the trick to it all. When you demonstrate that you are, I hate to use this term, but we'll use it, an alpha man, and you're very stern in your decisions, and you know the direction you want to go, you have an objective, they will fall in line. They will be like, oh, in fact, it builds more attraction. They'll be more attracted to you because you are someone who is very decisive, has a goal in mind, and is taking steps to achieve that goal. The worst thing you could be, and I don't care what anyone says in a relationship, is indecisive and weak. They'll walk all over you. So in this particular instance, they felt I was being draconian, very, very strict, you know. And sometimes men can be that way, but you also have to know times when you have to give a little. Like if they're hurting, you don't want them, you care and love them, and you don't want them to hurt. And that's what I told her. So, and she got that right away. She was so happy. It was like a big relief. So you have to understand that you are going to be dealing with these things constantly. It's like tests to see how you are as a man. How are your leadership skills? And this is something that you're going to have to perfect. And a relationship, a polygamous relationship, is a great test ground for that. Because remember, in ancient Africa, you couldn't be promoted to the pharaoh or king or queen if you haven't first demonstrated that you can manage a family. And having a family in Africa was really important, and the community looked to it. And if you didn't have a family, they were wondering why, what's going on with you, and you couldn't ascend to kingship if you didn't have a family, because that is your training ground for leading the nation. And that is so true. And we're talking about a polygamous relationship here where kids not even involved. So you're going to have to understand that you have two women who look for you for guidance, look for you for strength and direction. And if you can demonstrate that, it's great. But unfortunately, most men have a westernized and perverted view of polygamous relationships because all they think about, I have two women I can have sex with and all that. There is a whole host of responsibilities that come along with it and a whole host of headaches. These women will test you. You'll get into every possible scenario. This one's upset with you, while this one's not. Now this one's upset and the other one's not. Now they're both upset at each other, and you've got to go in there and play judge and help them work out the problems among themselves. And that's one of the more difficult challenges if the two women aren't getting along with each other. because they're going to call upon you to either side with one or to help rectify the situation. This is why we have oracles to assist you with that. You don't go in there with your own mind and think that you're good at solving problems like that, because there are things beneath the surface that you can't see, but God can through the oracles. So you do oracle reading first, and then you go into the situation to help resolve the issue that they're having. But I'm going to tell you, after years of doing this, when it crops up, it's not a big thing anymore. I'm just like, oh, okay, let me see how I can resolve this. 5 minutes later, resolved, And it's so easy. The one thing you don't want to do is like, what is your opinion? What do you think? Not that you don't care what they think, but you've got to be a leader, run right in there with a solution and keep it moving. If you're constantly looking to them for guidance and opinions on things, they're not going to see you as a leader. When I was in the military, your platoon leader was important. And he was not, you didn't look at him as a human being. You looked at him as beyond reproach, that he could make no mistake. So that when he gave a command, you followed it, and you were happy to follow it because you trusted him. And he knew that he had your safety at heart. Even though a time may come where he may need you to do something that could inevitably cost you your life, but he's not being malicious about it, but he's thinking about winning the war. And you will gladly go in there and die for the cause and for your leader. And luckily with these relationships, you don't have to do that. But you do have to play the role of Tahuti, the wise sage. Make a decision. I remember, because of my upbringing, we had a very, very toxic environment, my brother and I, that we were mentally and physically damaged. So when I got into a relationship, one of my first relationships, my girlfriend asked me to go and pick a melon. I couldn't make a choice. I couldn't pick one because I had never been given the responsibility to do that in my family. My mother was so strict. She wouldn't allow us to do anything independent. So when my girlfriend asked me to pick a melon, I was in an analysis paralysis, and I couldn't decide, because to me, if I had made the wrong choice, my subconscious mind was thinking I would get hit, but that would never happen. But that's what I was thinking from coming from that family of abuse. So I had to unlearn that. I had to be more authoritative, learn to make decisions, but not just decisions, but quick. You can't be pondering things. You have to make quick decisions. And by doing that, they see that you have experience, that you're confident. One of my favorite TV shows is TOS, the original series of Star Trek. And even Next Generation too. But there's a scene, I'm not really sure what episode it is, where someone is the captain is incapacitated, and then the next in line assumes command and asks for some advice, I think from Counselor Troy or someone. I don't remember the details, but the advice really stuck with me for a long time, even to this day. So what they said to this person who had suddenly taken on command is this. They actually pulled that person. I don't know if it was Data or who it was. I think it was Data. It was, I'm not sure. But they said this. It is important that you seem to have the answers in front of the crew. It is important that you don't look indecisive. And even if you don't have the answer, giving an answer, even though it may not be right, is still the best thing. In other words, I may be just translating this badly, but you may not have the answer, but it's important that you make a decision, whether it be right or wrong. So in the final hours and in that tense situation, and you don't know which way to go, so therefore it's 50-50, you just got to pick a direction and stick to it. You can't seem indecisive. You can't seem like you are like this is a democracy and you're taking a vote. Because in the eyes of the crew and the eyes of your mates, any decision, as long as you make it, is the right decision. And we have to understand that we're all learning and growing. And everybody's so-called human, and you could make mistakes, and that's okay. You have leeway to do that. But what is not okay is not having an answer when the time calls for it. You, like, especially in the military, in command, you never say, I don't know. It's either left or right, and that's it. And just in the same way in the military, when your commanding officer makes a decision, you don't question it. You just follow. That is your job, even though you may disagree with it. This brings order. And again, let me emphasize this. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. You learn from the mistake, but what will do you in is not making a decision. So give your best guess, make a decision, stick with it. And what you'll find is you'll have women who will be your ride or die girls. They'll stay with you. Because there are numerous examples of women who are with toxic men who make bad decisions, but these women still stick with them and love them. But because of you, who is spiritual in the Kemetic religion, you make your decisions based on oracle reading, God. So your decisions will always be correct because God is perfect. And it can't be questioned. You don't question God's guidance and wisdom. Can you imagine going to the oracle and asking God a question? And God's like, let me think on that. That would be horrible, you know? What kind of God is this? So you have to develop into that type of leader in your relationship and head of the house, that they're comfortable in following you and following your orders. You know, I said, you know, we want a pet, and we all decided we wanted this type of pet, but the pet's not available. So I did readings of other types of pets, and the reading said, this is the one you guys should have. And they're all iffy, and I'm like, they're all iffy. And I said, well, the oracle was clear that this pet would really go well in our house, in our home. Let's go. And because of that, they follow. And they know that the outcome will be successful because the oracle predicted that it would be successful. It will be taken in this pet would be a harmonious relationship. So you have nothing to fear. So I want you to think about that when you're armed with the oracle, you receive abundance. You got God backing up your decisions. But for those, and I don't want to pick on the Muslim community, who rule their house by this human mind, who typically just regurgitates things they read from the Quran, you don't know if that person is making the right decisions. But still the women follow. So I want you to think about that. Hopefully I'll make some more videos on this subject to help guide you through this type of relationship. And you have to decide for yourself if this is something you want. Because as I said, it's going to come with a lot of angst, a lot of challenges. And if you're up to it and your reading supports it, it can be a very rewarding relationship. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu. I want to thank you for being a Patreon supporter. And until my next video, I'm Ra.